Yeah, that's talk. That's enough talk about facial hair for us for one week.
I disagree. We can talk more.
Well, here we go. Here's the theme song. When these dads meet world, watching Boy Meets World. We grew up on the show, now we have kids and host a podcast. We watch each episode and then share our thoughts and grades. When these dads meet world.
They want you to take the roles.
They do. They want you to take the roles. Welcome back, good-looking people, to Dad's Meet World, your weekly step-by-step deep dive into that classic '90s show known as Boy Meets World. I am one of your dads, Tyler.
And I am your other dad, Brett. How's it going?
Yes, how is it going indeed? Brett, I was listening to our theme song because we always play it before we start. I know not every podcast does, but I like that we play it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting here and I was like, I appreciate our theme song. I liked our original. It gave me a certain judge whenever we got started, but there's something really
Mm-hmm.
special about the one you wrote, sang in, and continue to edit and mess with here and there. So, thank you, Brett.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So, what is new, Brett? How's it going?
Well, lots of new. We are through the. Have we talked about the eclipse since it happened?
We have not. We recorded before the eclipse.
Ah, yes. Well, we got to see the full totality here in Ohio. I live in Northeast Ohio. For any good-looking people who don't remember, so in my backyard, got to see the full totality of the eclipse. Just absolutely phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Few minutes there, just spectacular. And we are through spring musical season.
Very
We
nice.
wrapped it up over the weekend. Really fantastic performances. We went to opening and closing performances. And for a group that was not excited about Footloose being the musical this year, they knocked it out of the park.
Footloose.
Yeah.
Kick off your Sunday
They
shoes.
knocked it out of the park, and Abby said it was her favorite musical they've done in the 3 years she's been involved.
Good. I feel like that would have to be a fun one.
It was, yeah. And I'm waiting for details, but there is a rumor that they are supposed to be getting the rights to a live stream feed. So there may be a possibility of sharing that.
That'd be nice.
Yes.
I keep feeling super horrible because I can never get to a performance of theirs, and at some point we're going to the universe, like the eclipse, will align and I will be able to go and see them perform.
Well, hopefully it's this winter because Toby will be acting in the one acts and Abby will be directing one of them.
Really?
Yes.
Nice.
Well, how are things going for you? You got the eclipse over your way and all kinds of other stuff, I'm sure.
I was informed by my wife that I think we had like 98% eclipse. I don't know the difference between 100 and 98 besides the percentage number, but I don't know. All I know is we saw it. It was cloudy, so it's kind of difficult to fully see it, but it was pretty. It got dark, my headlights came on while we were sitting there watching it in the field, so it was a nice moment for the family. So I quite enjoyed it, and I used it to talk to our children at church the next week. So it all worked out pretty well, I think. Yeah, we have officially started baseball, so that's fun. But the thing I need to talk about, Brett, is important, but also it is aligned with this episode we have. I wasn't going to talk about
We
it.
hadn't had a good Tyler soapbox in a
It's
while.
not really a soapbox, but it's more of just an appreciation. Okay, so go back to 2007 with me, Brett. Do you remember where you were 2007?
I do.
Okay. So I remember 2007 slightly well. It's starting to go away from me a little bit, but there was a guy who made a debut into a profession called wrestling. Guy debuted in the WWE. I was a huge fan at the time, and I was watching it. And all of a sudden, this guy came out, and he said his name was Cody Rhodes. Have you heard the name of Rhodes in wrestling, Brett?
I am familiar with Mr.
Yes.
Rhodes.
So
Yes.
he debuted, and I was like, cool. And again, didn't know. I was saying I was a fan, but I didn't always understand everything. Like I wasn't a deep fan. All I knew is I watched, and whatever came up, came up. Who cares? And I've watched over the years. I haven't really been a fan and like watching all the time, but I kind of here and there I'd hear stuff about like if one of my favorite guys would return. I'd watch a YouTube clip or two, but nothing ever intense. Never really going back and watching the show on a weekly basis. My goodness, Brett, this past week was WrestleMania, and Cody Rhodes, who debuted, almost now is it 17 years ago, finally won the big one. He is now the champion. And I decided I was going to watch it because I have Peacock now, and I was like, I have the technology available. Why don't watch it? My wife was super embarrassed because she was still awake at the time, and she was kind of looking at me like, "So we're just watching this?" And she didn't say anything, but she was playing on her phone, watching TikToks, and she just goes, "Okay, well, I'm going to bed." I'm like, "What? You're not enjoying this?" She goes, "No, I've been ignoring you for the last 20 minutes. I'm done." So, yeah, she went to bed super embarrassed and annoyed. It's almost like when I start talking about little bits of the podcast, like a technical thing we've done, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool!" And she's like, "Yeah, cool, whatever." So yeah,
The eyes just kind of gloss
mhm.
over.
So I just, there's an appreciation I had for a guy who struggled for years, and he left the WWE, and he went on his own, and he made himself a bigger deal. So when he came back, they had no choice but to put him towards the top, and um,
Mhm.
so for me, I guess it's something of someone older than me fulfilling the dream he's always had. So it's kind of inspiring for me, still being a younger man. And um, there's another show I've been watching as of late. I'm not going to talk about it right now. I'll talk about it a different day. But um, let's just say the main character, the main person of a reality TV show I'm watching, said he didn't start in the career that he has currently until he was 35 years old. And it's just, time and space and numbers is all different now that I'm in my 30s, I think. Because once upon a time, I used to think, oh, your retirement years are so far into the future. And it still is, but it's now different, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
I just, I'm really in an appreciative zone and optimistic. So I'm not in a grumpy zone, I promise. And I might be in a little bit, but for right now, I'm in an optimistic, positive zone. And my little baseball team, they can go all the way this year. Our 6-year-olds, where we don't actually keep
All
score and no
right.
one actually wins. So we're just here to learn and have fun.
Everyone gets a
Yeah.
trophy.
I'm a fan of everyone gets a
All
a
right.
ribbon or a little medal. I'm not a fan of everyone gets a trophy though.
Mhm. T-ball or coach
It's
pitch?
coach pitch. Yeah, no, there's
All
a couple
right.
of kids that we've already like. It's second practice, and I've already actually throwing 2 kids. I want to get them used to that. So,
Have you beamed anyone yet?
so it was after practice.
That's a yes.
Well, okay, I didn't actually purposefully or even unintentionally hit my kid. I threw the ball, and it just was a little too close, and he swung, and it just nicked off his knuckles. He took it like a champ. He ran off the
Mhm.
field for a minute, but he was, he was okay. But yeah,
Oh yeah. I remember
so
those days.
hey, we have a better attitude this year, and that's all I care about. But I think, Brett, we need to get into
Good.
this
Good.
synopsis and get into this card that we have, if you know what I mean, wrestling fans.
I do. I do, yes. Good looking people. We are dropping into the 9th episode of season 4. We're almost halfway through. 16 Candles and 400-Pound Men. Frankie seeks Cory and Sean's help to earn the love of his father, Vader, when Vader wrestles Jake the Snake Roberts at a World Wrestling Federation house show. However, the match takes place the same day as Topanga's Sweet 16, forcing the kid who wants everyone to love him to both help a friend and celebrate a girlfriend's birthday at the same time. This episode was written by Matthew Nelson. This is the 6th of 19 episodes he's written. Of course, I've probably mentioned a few of these before, but Fishing for Verna, Hometown Hero, Long Walk to Pittsburgh, Chasing Angela, Everybody Loves Stewart, and others. And he also went on to write 13 episodes of Girl Meets World. Directed by Jeff McCracken, as every episode this season has been and will be for all of time. Originally aired November 15th, 1996, right in the heart of Sweeps Month. And currently enjoys a 7.5 rating on IMDb. Now, the week before, our previous episode pulled in a 16.0 rating. As I mentioned last week, it was the second highest rated episode of the season. Tyler, what do you think this week's episode pulled in with
I was
Vader
gonna say we
and
got
Jake
some
the
actual
Snake?
big names in this, and some wrestling people may have watched. So let's go with 15.5.
Very
Oh,
close,
hey, I'll take the over.
15.3. Yeah. Yeah, so 15.3 million, just a very small drop, but still in the 15 million watching at this point,
Yes.
WWF on Friday night.
Yes.
So take it away, Tyler.
Yeah. Before we begin, Brett, I just want to say, if you have not listened to the episode from last week, and you're kind of avoiding that, I highly recommend going back and trying to listen to it. There's some really good stuff in there. I think especially for parents and people that work with teenagers, and also it's a good starting point for a conversation. And if you're someone that is dealing with some of the stuff that we talked about, we'd love to hear from you. If you have more advice, we'd also love to hear that as well, because we want to support parents. We want to support people working with teenagers. So feel free to help us in that conversation, and also just as we try to make this world a better place. So I just want to say that before we get going. If there's anything else you want to add to that, Brett, I'm all ears.
Nope, I think you said it all. Just checked our email. We have nothing to share from anyone who might have listened, but that email box, dadsmeetworld@gmail.com, is always open, whether you're a parent who is seeking help or is in the midst of those conversations, or you're a teenager who is dealing with some of those issues that we talked about last week.
Thank you. So we begin this episode in poetry class. I didn't realize that there was a full-blown poetry class, but
I've noticed that Turner's English class has really morphed into just a poetry class this season.
I don't know. Yeah,
I don't have
education
a complaint.
is different,
Yeah, it's just we seem to be doing a lot with poetry.
Yes, it's like the only
Turner
thing he
this
does
year.
Yes. So yes. Cory is reading a poet, and keeps saying searching, searching, searching. Yes, very passionate.
He's very passionate.
And Mr. Turner asks Sean, "Hey, what'd he say? What'd you hear?" And Sean is just laying on two desks. Like, it's so absurd that it's like, was Turner not paying attention? Like, did he just let him do this? Like, it's obvious. Like, he always falls asleep in his class, but like, this is ridiculous.
This is a whole nother level. On the one hand, I can buy Turner letting it happen, but on the other hand, I can totally see Turner needing to nip this in the bud and nipping in the bud because he knows who Sean is.
Yes, and so he's like, "Get up," and he's like, "I don't want to go to school." Cory's reading poetry. And very sternly, Turner says, "You get your butt out of bed and get to class." Sean stands up and walks into the hallway.
It's a great bit. I
But
love it.
Frankie explains the poetry, and Cory is quite surprised that the poetry is not about search for a doggy.
Yes, I love seeing Frankie, a return to Frankie's love for and deep understanding of poetry. And I love Cory just being so literally dumb when it comes to poetry and just completely surface level.
Yeah.
And not looking beneath
I mean,
it all.
Cory at this point, I think he's become a student that's good about figuring out what's going to be on the test. And he's actually becoming a well-rounded student, but he doesn't want to put any thought into what is the deeper meaning behind things.
Cory is learning for the
but
grades.
At least he's trying. It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like when he was in 6th grade.
Yeah,
I mean, he's at least doing the work.
So, Frankie has transformed himself into the poetry king, apparently. So Cory is trying to make a deal with him, essentially, that if Frankie helps Cory and Sean understand poetry better, he and Sean will help him with his problem with love, because the poetry apparently was about searching for love. And he says, "Great, that sounds wonderful." And Cory, I think, thinks it's going to be like the last time they helped him with his love story.
Yes, which admittedly did not go great for Cory and Sean.
This really is one of those times, Brett, where the clip of "How can I learn so much each week and still be so stupid?" Because literally this
is highly appropriate.
You know, how can I learn so much every week and still be so stupid? Oh, man. We're doing this story again?
Yeah, and I mean, and to add to that, I mean, we've got Cory and Sean making a deal with Frankie where Cory and Sean are supposed to have an actual friendship with Frankie after the events of Joey being kicked out of school. I mean, I know that a lot has gone on off screen, but like we're back to just saying hi in the hallways when at the end of that episode there was supposed to be the beginnings of an actual friendship. So it's kind of a disappointment that we're back to that square, but then all of a sudden we're forgetting that they spent a third of that episode shoved in a locker helping Frankie to hook up with
I don't know. It's just I will say, like, I think Cory, it's almost like he's trying the same trick again, is what it feels like. I mean, last time it was just help us and then you don't have to beat us up, but this time it's, hey, help us get a little bit better grade and we'll help you, find love.
Yeah. It's a step up. It's not just to avoid immense pain. How'd Frankie put it? Immense pain.
I'll also say, I love that Frankie at this point, now that he is no longer a criminal, is, he seems like a more well-adjusted, regular person. He's put away the black. Yeah,
he's really just the gentle giant.
That's quite wonderful, really. Apparently, Frankie does not want to speak of his love situation in class, to which we transition to Frankie's house, which looks alarmingly like Sean's house.
It does. Reusing the set or redressing the set. They do a pretty good job redressing it.
Yeah, you can't hardly tell.
Yeah. And real world, yes, makes sense. In world, of course, a lot of trailers are going to look similar.
Yeah, exactly.
I find it rather interesting that a professional wrestler, and I've always found this interesting, a professional wrestler with the cachet that Vader had at the time would wind up living at a trailer park outside of suburban Philadelphia.
Yes. I mean,
I mean, I'm not saying that he had the cachet to have a mansion or anything, but he certainly had more than he needed to advance above a trailer park.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is an un it's an unrealistic version of who this person is. Like, I think Vader is awesome for Frankie's dad. The problem is he's
Mhm.
very much still wrestling, very much still very active, and very much making good money.
Yes.
I mean, is he a millionaire? Probably not, because at this time, wrestlers weren't millionaires unless they were holding the belt, but
Mhm.
making pretty close to it. I mean, in his career, probably made in the millions, but due to living costs, travel cost, and food cost, medical bills, all those things ate away at a lot of that.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way to truly justify it is has the trailer so that way he can provide for his family what they need, and they're trying to save as much of his wrestling money for when he is retired. That's the only way I'll justify it, so that way their life doesn't go into topsy-turvy the moment he retires and there's no money coming in.
Fair. Plus, they save on property
Yeah,
taxes.
exactly. He's not paying property tax. And if they need to move somewhere to train, he can always load up the trailer and they're gone. So,
Very
I mean,
true.
he's got a lot of hardware in the back and a bunch of belts and a bunch of memorabilia, and some of that has to be real gold. So, I don't know. Some of it could be melted down, I guess.
Could be.
But I bought my mic. I'm real professional. Yeah, it's a leap in logic that you can get there, and for the show it makes sense, but for real world applications, that doesn't make a lick of sense. Also, I'm pretty sure that Leon White, aka the actual man who is Vader, I'm pretty sure he is from the South.
Yeah, I think
And has
so.
never lived in Philadelphia. Again, I still love the casting of Vader for his father. Although I think this is the last episode.
Still, totally. This is.
Which is sad. So Vader comes into the house, and he has Herman behind him. The first appearance of Herman, I believe.
Is this the first? Check here. No, I think this is the second.
Yes, because the first time it's the shampoo.
Yes, he stole the shampoo the first time.
From Fishing with Verna. That's correct. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Trying to keep track of all of this lore of Boy Eats World is catching up to us. The two of them walk in. Apparently they've been at the gym training, and Herman is going to go into the family business.
Yes.
And
he said woof. So cute.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he tries to wolf because apparently Vader wolfs. I'm not sure if he actually did that in real life, but that's a thing he does in the show.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Vader is way before my time.
Yes. Vader was my time, but honestly, I was not big into wrestling. I knew some of the big names, but I really didn't follow much of anything.
It's honestly fair. So Herman apparently is going to go into the family business, and Frankie is trying to welcome him home, and Vader apparently notices that he's holding a poetry book, and Vader's quite disappointed. You and that poetry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is sad that Vader is just, he's so disappointed in Frankie not taking up his mantle that he's taken to belittling everything that Frankie does have an interest in, it seems. And I really wonder if Frankie received more love from Vader when he was a thug, when he was one of Harley's go-to
I guarantee
guys.
it. He was probably proud of him. I mean, they make it sound like he has always lived in Philadelphia, that He has known people for many years. People know who he is, and he was known as a bully from John Adams
Yeah,
High.
Feeney knows his
Yeah.
real name.
Francis. Yes. So we have this wonderful moment where Sean goes, "Oh my gosh, I know who Frankie loves and they don't love him." Yeah, me too. Amy Lee Reynolds.
I do love dumb Sean.
I know, me too. I mean, it's just it fits for this moment of Sean being oblivious to what's going on around him and thinking about pretty girls and who wouldn't like Frankie. I mean, at this point,
Yep.
Frankie is probably kind to every single person he's around and will talk to everyone. And I think people have started talking to him as well.
Mm-hmm. I do too, yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah, I think there's enough distance that they have.
Yes. I just love Cory's response to this. Yeah, definitely her. We transition, Brett, to the John Adams High, where we have the Cory and Topanga storyline. There are two plots for Cory and Cory and Sean and Cory and Topanga, and there is nothing about Cory's family this week.
Not at all. We don't even see Eric this week.
Yep, we don't.
There's only like 3 or 4 episodes in the entire run that doesn't have Eric, and this is one
which
of
is
them.
quite sad. Yes, so apparently Topanga is turning sweet 16, and the invitations have gone out officially. Cory's been hand delivered, and he's reading what her mom wrote, and Topanga is just, she is so upset and so embarrassed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm not sure if it was a West Coast thing or something, but the Sweet 16 craze never really seemed to hit anywhere around.
No, I mean,
we didn't really have a lot of girls that were into their big Sweet 16
like
birthday.
girls would have like a party for it, but it was never like rent out a hotel conference, hotel room space and everything, and go to a big giant party or anything like that. Maybe like a fire hall they might rent out. One girl, they rented out the community center and decked out the community center and had a limo that they'd ride around in a little bit, but nothing too outrageous.
Yeah, but I mean, even that, I mean, I know I grew up kind of in the boonies, but nothing even that extravagant around where I grew up.
Yes. So, anywho, not very common in our small communities, but I mean, for someone who's super popular who wants to do a party, and the 90s are quite famous for we do these big things, Brett. So, who knows? To quote Cory in a few years, hey, it's the 90s. What's done is done.
There we go.
Eventually, you're just going to have like Tyler's favorites and just all of the quotes that I keep saying.
Pretty much, yes.
Yes, so Topanga's mortified and she's worried, and Cory, tries to calm her and just says, hey, I'm your boyfriend. If it's important to you, I'll be there. Which, I mean, yes, it seems fair.
That's a good boyfriend.
Yes, but also, I have a question about the timeline of this episode, Brett, because I've never been given an invitation to a party, especially one that I'm required to be at, without at least a month's notice. So if this is like this week, I'm a little distraught by that. I'm just hoping that this is like hey, these two things kind of started around the same time and are ending at the same time, is my only hope. So maybe it's 2, maybe 3 weeks away, but it couldn't have been like Monday morning he gets the invitation. It's expected to be there Friday or Saturday night.
Yeah, it takes some dancing to make it work if that's the case. Though, to be fair, Asher did come home with a business card with a number I was supposed to call about a birthday party that wound up being Sunday. He came home with it on Friday because they can't pass out birthday invites in class because if there's someone in class that's not invited, that could be hurtful. But you can have your kid hand out business cards with a phone number to call to get
That
information
sounds
about
so
it.
creepy.
And it came home with him on. I know
That sounds worse.
So it comes home with him on Friday, and I'm not able to call it until Sunday. And I find out, oh yeah, the party's starting now. So,
That's crazy.
yeah. But yeah, especially for a party such as big as the Sweet 16 is, as big a deal as Topanga is making it, and a fight of that magnitude in a venue like that takes a lot of planning. So it had to have been some space.
Who said anything about a fight? We're just talking about a birthday party, okay?
Hey, I read the synopsis.
So the next scene is literally they're back at Frankie's house, and all of a sudden, Vader walks in and he says, "It's time! It's time! It's Vader time!" He's got his rematch with Jake the Snake Roberts, and apparently, if he wins, he'll get a shot at the belt, held currently by Shawn Michaels. This is not when he was a good boy, though.
Every wrestler's got to go through their good boy.
He was going through a very bad boy phase at this time. Anywho, so yeah, he's going to get a shot at the belt apparently, which I've never been to a house show, Brett. Good Looking People house show mostly just means it's a show that is only taking place there at a specific location. They are not recording it. There's nothing going out there for the general population. It's literally a show just for the people that is attending. It's very similar to Disney on Ice, essentially. It's a show that is going to look very similar from town to town based on who can make it there and what's going on. So, I mean, they will do like title defenses that night. Someone will have their belt on the line. They never change hands belt wise on a house show. If they do, there's a shenanigans behind it. Or if someone, if something crazy happens, they'll deal with it on the actual shows later on. But it's never normally something that is a big old, things are now changing forever, or truly someone's getting a contendership spot for the belt now, yada yada.
Tyler, are you saying that wrestling is scripted?
It is scripted. People are still putting their bodies on the line, and that is 100% real. But yes, it is scripted. As to quote an old teacher of mine, pro football makes pro wrestling look real. So anywho, so apparently Cory and Shawn are trying to encourage Frankie to get into the world of Vader, apparently. And so he says, "Hey, tell him you're setting up the Vader bomb slow." And Vader's like, "Oh, I thought something was wrong with the bomb." Good Looking People, just so you understand, again, wrestling is scripted, and so the advice of the Vader bomb is taking too long. That's a purposeful thing. The man is climbing up to the ropes, and then he is falling on someone. There's only so much he can do for speeding it up and for dramatic purposes, And again, he is a bad guy in wrestling. It's supposed to be slow. The way that this episode is trying to portray is that Vader is this good guy, like he brings his son to the ring and his son's friends, and so he is a good guy. And Jake the Snake is trying to hurt the teenagers. I have thoughts, Brett. I have thoughts.
Clearly.
So yes, Frankie apparently is going to be at his dad's corner when he faces Jake the Snake Roberts, either at a house show, as in the synopsis, or potentially at a taping that is taking place in Philadelphia. Because once upon a time, they used to tape their shows ahead of time, and so this could be a taping on a show that would be on weekly on Mondays. But we're not going to say it right now. But anywho, yes. So we go to back to John Adams High. Hold on. Do we even see Feeney this episode? I don't think we do.
No, we really don't.
We go to John Adams High multiple times and never see Feeney. Oh my gosh! If Feeney would,
frankly, it's amazing.
If we saw
see
Feeney
Turner.
at the dance, I think that would have been hilarious. Anywho, sorry. Frankie comes up to Cory and Sean saying, "Hey, we'll see you tomorrow night." Right? Hey, tomorrow night. What's going on? And he's like, "My dad. His match is tomorrow, and you're going to be there to give me tips." We'll get there, Brett. We'll get there. Save it, Tyler. Just save it. But Sean's trying to say, "Hey, Cory, there's a problem. You have Topanga Sweet 16 tomorrow." To which now Cory is in a dilemma, Brett. And there's only
he is.
There's
on the
only one
horns of a
person
dilemma.
who's going to help him figure out this problem. And before I forget, he tries to go to Topanga to be like, "Hey, how would you feel if I didn't come to your party?" And she goes, "I die."
Yeah. Because clearly she was lying about it not
right. Now,
meaning
good-looking
anything to
people,
her
this is
earlier.
clearly a joke, indicating that, she's trying to communicate that the party is super important to her, and this will help set up their relationship, and it's going to be a special moment for them. But if anyone ever, and I do mean ever, tells you, "If you don't do this, I will die," unless they are just being dramatic or trying to be funny, you need to question your relationship, and you need to question the sanity of the person you are with, and potentially get out of there, because that is not a good relationship indicator, and you don't want a what's it called? Yes,
that's flat out
the
emotional
manipulation. Why am I not thinking of it right now? Ultimatum. Sorry, that's not a good ultimatum to. That took me forever. It's not good to have an ultimatum of "do this or I die." So yes, so unhealthiness for sure. Yes,
that's emotional
exactly.
blackmail is what it is.
So they're in the Matthews living room. This is the only time we see the Matthews household this whole episode. And Sean is showing Cory an episode of the Flintstones where Fred is supposed to be at Pebble's birthday party and also at the Water Buffaloes party as well. And so Sean rolls out the film and he gets a little wand out to indicate what he's doing, almost like a coach going through a play.
And Sean is so very well prepared for this. He has done his work. He's got the pointer. He's excited. He has gone through frame by frame to work it out. He knows the time frame that they need to be in each place. I mean, Sean for his part has figured out a plan he thinks is going to work.
Sean's argument is that the arena that the match is taking place at is 0.3 of a mile away from the location of Topanga's party. Which, okay, that could be a possibility. I don't know about you, Brett, but anytime I've tried to get anywhere in a city, it is impossible. So 0.3 of a mile in a city can be quite difficult. The other thing is that they have a kind of a meta conversation about how the Flintstones is a 22-minute show, and being somewhere for 75 seconds at a time might work for a TV show, but would not work in real life. I always love when Boy Meets World has these little discussions about how this is real life, Sean. It can't work.
All right, what's our time constraints?
I'm on that too. Fred never spent more than 75 seconds at either location.
Yeah, but you see, Sean, that was a cartoon. Time was compressed. We're real. We're in real time.
Trust me, it's the same thing.
No, it's not. You see, a television show can cover many days in only one half-an-hour program.
Trust me, it's the same thing.
Okay.
I'm very impressed with Sean and the effort he has taken, unlike most things in the world.
Yes, and I mean, as far as his math on the distance, I mean, we're only talking 528 yards, 1,500 feet. They can jog that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Google's my friend.
Yes.
Google and a
I also
calculator.
Google too. So, yes, we get to the arena, Brett,
Mm-hmm.
and we have people introducing Vader, and he's starting to walk out. Did you recognize the man with the red face?
I did. He looked familiar. I didn't dig into his IMDb or anything.
Oh, that's okay. So that is Bruce Pritchard. He's playing a character called Brother Love. Basically a 80s televangelist, kicked up to a level of annoyance, and basically, instead of preaching the gospel, he's preaching the gospel of love, to love one another. And he's a bad guy, Brett.
Yes.
Yes, I will say the man has a podcast that he talks about wrestling and wrestling stuff over the years. And this was brought up at one point, and while I was listening to this podcast. And so, when Boy Meets World was first airing, he would get a residual check, and hey, this is a nice chunk of change, little thing for him to put aside, nothing
Mhm.
too much, but something for him. Well, eventually the residual checks got lower and lower, and uh, it got to a point where he was getting a residual check for like 2 cents, and he's he is a he's independent, he's self-employed, and so his accountant would send him a message like, why do you keep filing as if you're an employee? And he's like, because Disney keeps sending me a check for 2 cents. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm happy for the opportunity, but after a while, the show is effing up my taxes every year. And so he apparently signed a waiver to be like, I no longer want to receive royalty checks. Like, can you please
Mhm.
stop sending them to me? So, yes, so
Wow.
much joy. So the character Brother Love, I do know that he was around at this time. He was like late 80s, mid 90s ish. It's probably like the last year maybe that this character was in existence. So yes, he introduces the fact that Vader is here because it's
Mhm.
time. It's time. It's Vader
Vader
time.
time.
Yes. So he comes out, and the commentators make sure that everyone knows that coming out with his son Frankie and his advisors Cory and Sean.
That's right.
Yes. So, all right, let me just describe the whole thing, I guess. So they come out and they're all excited, and Jake the Snake, the bad guy, Jake the Snake, he is there, and he has literally his snake with him at the time. So he pulls the
Yes.
snake out. It scares Cory and Sean and Frankie. And Vader stands there to be like, "Don't you bring that snake out here!" And yes, commentators making it very clear that they're nervous and things are about to get underway. Excuse me. And Cory and Sean decide this is the time to leave.
Fun fact, Jake the Snake is actually still active as of this year in the AEW.
Yes, he does a lot of behind the scenes stuff. He'll come out as a manager here and there, but he's not wrestling. Although these guys, no matter how old they are, they'll put moves on here and there. So,
Oh, yeah.
um, actually, fun fact. So there's actually a different manager type guy who is most recognizable with Vader. And there was a point when he was working for WWF's now WWE where he was no longer a talent. He became part of the office. He was at a show and he goes, "Hey, this would be fun. Put a move on me." And they did. And they came back and he said, "How could you do that? You can't do that anymore. You're not a talent." And he's like, "I'm here. I can do them. Why shouldn't I?" Yes, so it's a weird world, the wrestling world, people, and the fact we're talking about this all this stuff today is just beyond odd to me. But works well because WrestleMania was literally just last week. So yes. So first of all, Brett, I'm assuming you haven't been to a show or really watched much
No.
of anything wrestling wise, but it's
No.
not very common that people who are not under contract with a promotion to come out as a guest in the ring with them. People don't get to make that decision. Normally, managers have a very specific job for them to be out there and not just stand there. A lot of times, if it's say a female, they're trying to subdue the opponent with their looks, distract things, distract referees. Yes, all those things. If it's a male, normally they're trying to annoy the good guy. A lot of times, people come to the ring. It's a bad guy that has someone with the ring. If it's a good guy, normally they don't have someone with them. So
Yes. You gotta be above the fray.
yeah, unless they're there to even the odds. That's really the only time a good guy has someone in their corner. But it's never just a son and the friends of the son in the corner for someone.
This doesn't take your son to work day.
Yes. And also, also spoiler alert for anyone that does not know, but in a true match, the people are working together. They will call out what they call spots, and they will make clear of what they're doing so they don't hurt each other. Now, will people take advantage and decide to do things that they want to do because they have the power to do it? Yes. Is it good, and is that normally something that people will find out about, hear about? Yes. Um, Anywho, so it's not very common that people would be there. Also, Jake the Snake only gets the snake out when it's absolutely needed, and I just don't think it was needed right now. This is clearly just for TV.
You don't need a snake to scare off a couple of teenagers.
Yes. So, I will say, there's a part of me that wishes Jake the Snake was more of a person in this episode. Like, it almost would have been cool if, like, before the episode, like before the match, we would have seen Jake the Snake and the two of them talking to each other. And for Cory, maybe to have a realization of like, huh, this is weird. This doesn't feel right.
Oh, they can't dispel that myth, though.
I know. We're still in an era where they have to make it seem like Jake the Snake's the bad guy. He's just evil, rotten to the core, and Vader is this dad, and he's a good guy. But again, in real life, Vader was always a bad guy because he is big and mean.
So anyway,
they exit and get to Topanga's Sweet 16 party, and Cory has been looking for her everywhere.
Cory does not cover well.
No, and so he comes up with a reason why he can't hang out with her at this very moment. Apparently, the party's been going on for the last 20 minutes, and so he decides that
your aunt, she's over there. No one knows how long we really have, and goodbye.
Has her go sit with, I think, her grandma.
Something, yeah.
Yes.
I don't even know what I said.
Yeah. So they take off. They get back to the ring, and they are quite concerned. quite worried. I was like, "Where have you been?" Your Aunt Ruth. She's over there. It's like, what? We had to buy Vader masks. Apparently, he needs some tips. He needs some help. And they keep saying randomly like, and Frankie looks so concerned. He's concerned for his father, which again, in a reality where a booker actually has a child of someone, them showing them off, yes, they're going to look concerned. Yes, it's a storyline, but Boy Meets World, this is not a real thing. They wouldn't keep calling it out if it's just a one-time ordeal. Yes, but Jake Snake is trying to go for the dastardly DDT, which was once a devastating finisher, which is now just a random move that anybody does. That's the way wrestling goes. So yes, he tells him, counter the DDT. Thank you. I bet Vader couldn't figure out.
I never would have thought of that on my own.
It's like that joke Bill Engvall.
Watch out for the DDT, Dad.
It's like that joke Bill Engvall has with his wife giving him directions, like, make sure you turn left here. Well, thank goodness you're here. I'd be in a ditch right now. Yes, so they get him out of the grasp of the DDT, and they got to run back to the Sweet 16. And Topanga's so happy he's there, except before that, Brett, apparently, Cory almost walks up and talks to her with the mask on. To which, okay, in the moment of him being like, take the mask off, I was under the impression, because it's been a while since I've watched the episode, that maybe Sean saw it the whole time and was just messing with Cory. And then as he walks away, he's like, anyone could have missed it. It's like, Sean is not that dumb to be looking at Cory in the face and not see the mask.
And yet they've been playing Sean as dumb with everything except for coming up with the plan.
Yep.
Which in and of itself is kind of dumb anyway.
Yeah. So Topanga's trying to make it clear that she wants us to do the special dance, and she wants to do it after this song. And Cory decides this is the time to run away once again.
As the song starts.
Now, I will say, for a spoiler alert to the to deep dives, I could not find this song. I do not believe it's a real song, but in the show, it's the realest, truest Sweet 16 song there's ever been written. So, I don't know. I mean, it should have been released after this episode came out, that's for sure.
Well, if it was an episode that was released today, it would have.
So they get...
Check out our Spotify playlist.
They get back to the match, Brett, and Vader's exhausted. He's out of breath. He doesn't know what to do. He's losing it, and he's outside the ring, and Frankie basically says, "You're my father. Give me a woof." Which is all he needs, and he gets up there, woof, 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 and he's able to get him there and set up the Vader bomb, and he does it faster, and Vader's getting a shot at the belt at Madison Square Garden against Shawn Michaels.
Yep. I will say, I like the moment that Vader and Frankie
Yeah, it's adorable.
share. I mean, it's finally a father-son moment that Vader has been a crap father to Frankie. And it is a moment that he has needed to share with his son, where he accepts Frankie for who he is. And he sees that Frankie loves him. And Frankie is able to let his dad see, and he finally has his dad see that he genuinely loves him and supports him.
Well,
I do.
He sees that his son doesn't look down upon him because he's a meathead, and he is not looking down upon his father, and he's not looking down at his son because he can use his words and share his emotions. So it is a genuinely beautiful moment of them coming closer together.
Yes.
Yes, so this is the greatest moment of his life, Cory says, and then realize, oh, Topanga.
No, it's not.
So he goes back to the Sweet 16 birthday party, and we'll get into the discussion about their resolution in just a moment, Brett. But now I really do have to open up a soapbox for us. So, Brett, average birthday party is 2 hours, give or take, right? Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
for
I'd
like
say
a
so.
special one where there's like a lot of dancing, and it's like you rented out a really special place. Maybe you're looking at
You might
might
stretch to
stretch to
3.
3 depending upon the venue, how much you've spent, how long the DJ is going to be there for, yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
A wrestling match, let alone a match with a heavyweight and a super heavyweight, would not last for 2 hours.
No, we're talking what? 25 minutes?
Yeah,
at most?
that is a healthy, young, and coordinated super athlete. I mean, with pomp and circumstances and all, traditionally a super heavyweight and a heavyweight, they're going tops 10 minutes between entrances, introductions, and actual locking up. They're not going that long. If it's the main event, they might stretch it to like 12, 15 minutes, something like that, maybe 18 at most, but you're not looking at a 2-hour match.
No.
So the fact of the matter that Cory could not communicate to his girlfriend, I am needed for like an hour elsewhere, but then I will show up for your party. There's no way the match and party are happening literally at the same time, and there's no way around it.
Especially not being 0.3 of a
Right.
mile apart.
And, live performances, as you know, Brett, can go long. They can start early, go long. But you're talking about if it's the main event that night, that's going on last, which means it won't be going on till potentially 11 o'clock at night. So you're telling me that Cory couldn't have been there at the beginning of the party and said to her, hey, this is the time I absolutely have to leave? No?
Yeah. Cory was, in the wrestling vernacular, Cory was the heel.
Cory is a mark, which means believes that it's real and way too intense about fandomhood. At the end of the day, the timing does not line up.
No.
The only way I can excuse it is if Cory didn't know what time the match was going to go on, and thus felt his whole night was needed to be devoted to the wrestling match, and he couldn't get to the Sweet 16 until he knew when the match was going to start.
Which is possible.
Right, it's possible, but if you're a part of the show, you would know when you get there when you're going on, especially if this is the promoted main event of the card. Like local legend Vader is taking on Jake the Snake, and winner is now the number one contender to the title, to Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, they would have known, being in that inner circle, they would have known exactly when they were expected to go on.
Yeah. Again, this is also why you don't have random teenagers as people going down to the wrestling match. So
yeah. Vader's got
not
a pretty
saying
good
that
manager.
Yeah, I don't know
That's
how they
where all
pulled
his
that
money
off.
goes.
Anywho, also, for the record, they would have to pay Cory and Sean and Frankie for this, which means they'd have to follow child labor laws, which is why they don't normally have children at these type of events performing.
Mhm. Yeah. Never mind getting
There's
in
a
and out of the building repeatedly.
which I
Past
have to
security.
say, what's funny about this is that there was an incident with a minor who said he was an adult and performed in a different promotion called ECW, and there was a giant lawsuit because the child's parents were quite upset that their child had to go to the emergency room for the injuries he received.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, that's bad.
yeah, it is bad. Could you imagine? I can't. You know what ECW was, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, could you imagine Cory and Sean going to an ECW match?
And Cory, the Cory.
Yeah, Cory the Cory. Yeah.
That could have been a fun
Ugh.
episode.
That could have been a fun episode. If they were actually in Philadelphia at the time, that is something they would have done as teenagers.
Yep.
But the way they make it seem as if Cory never misses a match because WWF is always in Philadelphia, which he is not.
Yeah. And it really surprised me just how into wrestling Cory was.
Just for this episode.
Yeah, just for this episode. I mean, I know it's a plot point. An episode's going to episode, but they've kind of been moving away from Cory being heavily into sports over the last couple of seasons. And now all of a sudden he's back into wrestling and never misses a match. And he knows all these details, and then we'll never hear of it again.
Yeah, I mean, Cory has to have interest in order for the plot to happen, but it's not that out there for a teenager to like wrestling.
No, certainly not.
I was one of them. Like, it's not that uncommon for teenagers to get into it, especially if, you have friends that are into it. So Cory and Sean being into wrestling makes sense to me.
Yeah, but Sean's only interest in wrestling is when it involves girls wrestling with him.
Yes. Well, and that's the other thing that bothers me, because this character of Vader, he is known now for at least 2 years and literally came into a quote unquote fight with him at one point. So, like, to make it seem like he's a big fan of Vader out of nowhere doesn't fit right in the canon of this show.
Yeah. Well, the joke is what's important.
And episode has to episode, Brett. We did it. We did it again.
So what happens when Cory finally makes it back to Topanga Sweet 16?
Well, this 20-minute match apparently was long enough that Topanga's party is over, because this is either the longest match of Vader's career took place with Jake the Snake, or
pretty tired.
Topanga had only like a 40-minute party.
She threw a big hissy fit when Cory wasn't there for her dance and everyone left.
Okay, now I believe that she got upset and threw everybody out, not that the party was already over by the time the match was done. I literally could see her having a temper tantrum for this Topanga that we now know, and for the party to be ruined and over, and for everyone to leave. That makes sense to me.
I can see the writers putting that in there. Yeah, I can see that being a reason.
I would rather them actually show that, though, because that would be more for her character.
Yeah. But we finally get Cory sharing information that he should have shared before.
I almost said Cory the Cory.
Cory the Cory. And we get another I would never hurt you from Cory after he's hurt Topanga. And I have to ask myself, I almost wonder if I should be starting a counter for Cory's I would never hurt yous.
Oh boy, you have to go back in time, because that's...
I know. It's one of those things I wish I would have thought of before we got this deep into his relationship with Topanga. Because
but I mean,
he's
had it so many times. I mean,
I know.
It's more accurate to say I would never intentionally hurt you.
Yeah.
But to say,
Yeah, but he
I'll
does,
never hurt you again.
which is almost as bad, but
Right.
still, that's marginally better than I would never hurt you.
Right.
I just did, but
Right.
I would never. But
I mean,
he does apologize, and he does let her know that he was helping Frankie
mhm.
get closer to his dad, and he's able to point it out because someone at the party had it on the TV in the room,
Right.
not in the side room, the ante room, where the kitchen staff is watching. No, it's in the room next to the stage
Uh-huh.
over the bar.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and that's
I'm
also
sure
the
Topanga was
thing.
really happy with wrestling match on
And
the
that's the
TV.
thing that bothers me too, Brett. If it's on TV and it's just down the road, A, did no one see him there before? And B, what is this thing? Is this a live show? How is that possible? They have a live feed into the arena? Like, what is the deal? Like, this is the 90s. Is this a pay-per-view? Like, what is this? I don't understand. There's so many more questions than there are answers to any of it.
There are.
I also keep getting bothered because they keep saying, "How's the fight? This is a fight. I got a fight." It's not a fight. It's a match. It's a wrestling match. If it was a fight, then Vader would have just sat on him and punched him in the face until he died. But this is not a fight.
We're not boxing here. This is wrestling.
Correct. And I also, I appreciate that Topanga says to him, "I know you wouldn't have done this unless you had a good reason. Please tell me you had a good reason." And he does. And I also like that when they go, "Oh, from the Flintstones," she goes, "Ah, yes, the water
I love
buffalo
that episode.
Yeah, water buffalo episode, Pebbles episode." And so it's like she instantly understood. It's almost like
Mhm.
if he would have just said something to her beforehand, she would have been reasonable to, "I get what you
Yes.
have to do. Please be here when you're able to.
Mhm.
And just do the dance with me at the party. I am not leaving the party until you do."
Yeah, just so many. We have a Topanga who very clearly would have understood and does understand,
Mhm.
and a Cory who once again is just so dumb and does not learn at all.
Uh-huh.
How can I learn so much every week and still be so stupid?
And once again hurts his girlfriend.
Yeah. Well, and Sean has an idea to make it up to her for Cory. And it cuts
Mhm.
to them being in the wrestling ring, the song playing again, and the two of them showing a slow dance in the wrestling ring. Which
16
adorable. This is a
candles.
great shot. And I hearken to think, Brett, that this is the image in their head they had in the writer's room of, wouldn't it be nice for them to have be in an arena with a spotlight dancing? Adorable.
It would not shock me if they worked backwards from this image, crafting the episode.
Yeah. It's just, and it's really cute. It's nice. And this is the shot that they use in the future, when they show highlights of their relationship. They go back to this moment.
Yeah,
It was just
it
great.
shows up a lot.
Of course, it gets ruined when they come back from the end tag, and it's literally
Vader's practicing.
Vader is showing a brand new move, and he's splashing the ring, which would reverberate, and they would feel that and probably fall down, but they keep dancing. Who cares?
Yeah, and I have to ask the question. Topanga missed out on this special 16th birthday dance in front of all her family and friends that is supposed to mirror the dance that her parents shared at her 16th. There's at her mother's 16th birthday. Is dancing alone in an empty arena in the middle of a wrestling ring with no one around except for a sweaty old man, Frankie the Enforcer, and Sean around. Is that really does that really make up for Cory missing out on this big special moment?
Yeah, 20-minute show apparently.
I am not a 15-year-old girl, 16-year-old girl at this point. In my mind, it does not.
Mhm.
I'm not Topanga. Maybe clearly in Topanga's mind it does, but in my mind that's not an equal exchange there.
Yeah. Well, Topanga feels like she's hit a phase of I like to display my relationship, and not to be able to display it at this time feels wrong to her. It's what they are communicating.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree with
This is part of the pay-per-view.
that. Yes, the special cut is after the pay-per-view is over. We need
Anyone who stuck around and was still having their house party
yeah,
get to watch a couple of 16-year-olds dancing.
also good-looking people. For the record, they don't keep the ring up after the wrestlers leave and all the crowd leaves. They start tearing that stuff up immediately. If you've been to any show ever, the moment the show is done, there are people in there and they are tearing everything up. It doesn't matter how big the show is, the big the performers are. They have another date they're going to, and they're donezo.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, yeah, I've. It's always funny to me after a show is done and you're watching, people start to file out, and I love watching all the crew because you see guys come out with their walkie talkies. Normally they're like on like a headset. They're going, okay, you gotta blah blah blah, and they're like pointing out all the things they need to get, and they can see the special gear that they're starting to grab and taking stuff off the stages, and yeah, no, that stuff it's all got to be done. Did you know, Brett, that one of the reasons why the Eras Tour was able to be so profitable is because half of the stage and crew would take off and they would get started on the next place before the show was over.
That
So
makes sense.
ergo, they could get to the next city faster, get things going, so that way when the rest of it showed up later, it was all able to get done faster.
Yeah, makes sense.
Did you eventually watch the Eras Tour on Disney Plus?
What do you think?
I assume that if you were to accidentally watch it, it's because Kelly was watching it.
No. The only thing I've been watching on Disney Plus aside from Boy Meets World lately is X-Men 97.
See, I haven't known how to feel about that coming out, and so I wasn't sure if I really wanted to watch it yet.
Well, I'll talk about it more on another podcast.
That sounds like a plan.
But my one sentence review, watch it. It is a worthy continuation of the X-Men series from the 90s.
So I'd have to rewatch all of the episodes from that season show.
You don't have to rewatch them. I did rewatch them all leading up to it, but it is user friendly. It is very accessible.
Okay. Yeah. So the other part to the end of this, Brett, is that Frankie and Sean are watching them dance, and Frankie wondering if Sean thinks they're going to go the distance, and Sean says, "Yeah, they're going to go all the way." Yeah, I will say it's the first hint that Sean believes in their relationship. Other than just the fact that he thinks they should be dating, he believes that there's something deeper to their relationship, and something that makes them better, and something that he is interested in but doesn't know what that means yet. So, and I think there is some maturity that Sean has gone through, especially after the breakup and then getting the two of them getting back together, as far as how the Cory and Topanga relationship affect him and how it affects each other. So it's beautiful to see that.
It is. It's a very nice moment. I like it.
And so the last line that Francis Sakino Sr., aka Vader, aka Leon White, says is, "Yeah, son." And thus we can bid adieu to Francis Sr.
Goodbye, Francis Vader Sticchino. Thank you for your service.
And woof woof.
Wish you woof woof indeed. Wish you could have had a higher note to go out on.
Yeah.
But you will be missed.
I mean, for someone who is only in like 3-4 episodes, he leaves a good mark on the show.
Mm-hmm. He really does. And really, every time that he's been on, I mean, he's not going to be winning any Emmys for his acting talent, but he comes in and he hits what he needs to hit.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, he is perfect for the role he's cast in, and I couldn't see anyone else playing that role of Frankie's dad.
It just goes into show of the show knows how to build up their side characters and give some interest there, but the show doesn't want to create such a huge ensemble that it's hard to keep up with. So, like Verna, like Eli, like Harley and Griff, could literally name Minkus. Like, it's both a good thing and a bad thing that Michael Jacobs keeps the focus on Cory, Sean, Topanga, and the Matthews. He does a great job of introducing these other characters you get interested in and you buy into, but then they leave and they're gone and they're never seen from again. It's both a great thing about the show and also a sad part about the show.
It is.
So
it really is.
And that's our episode, Brett.
All right, so let's hear some deep dives.
People. Am I the only one who read the summer reading list?
So we've got into a good amount of the wrestling stuff already. I guess the big thing that I want to make sure that I communicate, Brett, is wrestling is a scripted program where people put their bodies on the line. They're not always well taken care of afterwards and have a lot of damage. But there are people who still love many wrestlers out there. In fact, let's talk about one, Jake the Snake, who is in this episode. He doesn't talk. He's not a character that interacts really with Sean and Cory. Mostly he's just there to be the wrestler. But he was born May 30th, 1955. I cannot say his actual first name because it looks like Aurelin, Aurelin Smith Jr., but he's better known as Jake the Snake. Let's see, does it say? Sorry, I was just looking to see when it said. Okay, made his first appearance for the World Wrestling Federation in 1986, and then he made a return in 92. And then he also came back in 1996 and was there in 1997. He has made appearances in almost every promotion out there. Several small indies, but also at TNA and now All Elite Wrestling, as you mentioned before. WCW also. Thing to know about Jake the Snake is that he never actually won the world title. So the fact that he and Vader are both going for the title, which neither one of them ever won the WWE or WWF title. But Jake the Snake, there was a documentary released on him in 2015 called Resurrection of Jake the Snake, where basically he was trying to get his life back on track. He has having a lot of issues with flexibility, and also he was really involved with drugs and alcohol addictions, and he worked with another former wrestler called Diamond Dallas Page, DDP, and he has DDP yoga, but also like with him was like, hey, we're gonna do yoga classes, but also I am going to be your life coach essentially. You're gonna live at my house, and you will not drink or do drugs while you are here. Helped him to get flexibility back, and also just kind of helped get him clean. Um, and then later on in 2014, after everything that happened with Diamond Page, he actually was introduced into the WWE Hall of Fame. Then apparently in 2020 was introduced into the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum, which is different than the WWE Hall of Fame. So yeah, Jake the Snake, big deal, and turned his life around. Uh, drugs and alcohol really were a huge problem for his in his career, and stumbled him quite a bit. Excuse me. I mentioned Bruce Pritchard earlier, and the funny story that I mentioned about him. Played a character, Brother Love. Started at WWE in 1987, and then came back and from 1997 to 1991, and then 1992. Basically came back, had a short stint away, and then was there for quite some time. He works mostly behind the scenes, though, and actually is back working there once again. So, part of Cody Rhodes' winning was he called out Bruce Pritchard and a couple other people to come out from the back. So, I will say what's interesting is that they say I got my rematch with Jake the Snake, and you may be wondering, Brett, when did he have the original match?
When did he?
I say that to you because it could help give context to this whole thing. So 1996, they held King of the Ring, and one of the matches in the King of the Ring series was Jake the Snake versus Vader, and that the date of that was June 23rd, 1996. I don't know if it actually aired that day, but probably, because it says the event took place, but when did it actually air? Oh well. Event. Yeah, so it was the semifinals was Jake the Snake versus Vader. Interestingly enough, Brett, he got his rematch because he lost, and Jake the Snake also lost that night to a little, really a one-hit wonder, like really only one big match, and then no one ever heard of him again. Just disappeared off the face of the map. And the moment I say it, Brett, you're going to be like, oh, who's that guy? But the guy who won, I guess his name was Steve Austin, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh yeah, no one remembers that guy.
Right, I figured as much. So.
That dude was just a washed up, yeah,
right,
Chumbawamba.
Right, exactly, Brett. I mean, like, you never watch wrestling, but clearly you there's no way you've ever heard of that name, right?
Never.
Yeah. So arguably the most famous wrestler of all time, Stone Cold Steve Austin, won the King of the Ring this night, when Jake the Snake and Vader first went against each other. This is also the night where the Austin 316 was born. And so essentially this is the night where arguably the most famous wrestler ever is formed fully, coming up with his his most famous catchphrase, and also his other one of, and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. All those come together all at once, and now you have this character that is setting the world on fire. So I bring that up, Brett, because if Stone Cold is at this event, which these guys are at, they are not the main event. Stone Cold is the main event.
Yes.
So I could understand why Cory and Shawn would not know when their match would be going on, because Stone Cold is there. They're not going on last. If Shawn Michaels, the current champion, if he is there, they're not going on last. Bret Hart is there. They're not going on last. I say these names because, Brett, there are big names out there, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, that those are the top people that they're not going over them. It's not happening. No. So, to get us away from the wrestling, I think it's about time. Yes. Now, again, I'm not a huge fan of wrestling. I just now have knowledge that I apparently now am getting out of my brain. So it's nice.
Yeah.
So the episode in question, where's it at? I had the date of airing. Where did it disappear to? Oh, sorry. Pebble's Birthday Party aired October 8th, 1964. It's a 25-minute episode. Fred has to organize 2 parties and 1 hour apart. Pebble's first birthday party he already planned, plus he and Barney were picked by the Grand Pumbaa to create the water... Oh, there we go. The Water Buffalo Stag Party, because they arrived late. So, I mean, the episode is quite well explained in the episode, I'm not going to lie.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes. The big thing, good-looking people, is that the time differentials made absolutely no sense to me, and I could not find the Sweet 16 song. And at this point, those are your deep dives, Brett.
All right. So let's ask, what did we learn?
You know anything about the Odyssey? Huh? Did I say you could talk?
I didn't teach you that.
My friend Mr. Matthews will lead the discussion.
Do I have to draw you a picture?
What did you learn, Brett?
I learned don't try to be in 2 places at once.
Mm-hmm.
But
wise.
really, I was reminded, or would like to remind everyone, communicate with the people you care about so you can avoid sitcom level hijinks. What did you learn, Tyler?
Well,
other than all of that wrestling knowledge.
Outside of the whole Sweet 16 birthday nonsense, I think what I learned is if your child is different than you need to make an effort to bridge that gap. Your child is not an extension of you. Your child is not a clone of you or copy of you, no matter how much they may look like you, no matter how much they may act like you, have the same emotional tendencies as you. They're not you. And if your child has an interest that you don't find very interesting, you might have to fake it and accept it. So it's your response. I will quote a future Amy line: "You are the father. You set the tone for the relationship." I think this is a good example of that, this episode.
I agree. All right. So, let's grade this puppy. What grade do you give this one, Tyler?
Okay, so this is a hard one to grade because there is 2 storylines, but they really intersect. I feel like this is a solid B+ episode. Like, there is nothing overtly wrong with the episode, but it's not in the tier and quality that we know this show can do. but it's not a bad episode by any means. It's just kind of shallow and hollow a little more than it normally is. So, and Sean and Cory are both brilliant and dumb all at the same time. And there's some leap in logic that I can't really, I can't make that jump evil. What about you, Britt?
I'm gonna land on a D.
Explain, sir.
uh it is really, this episode to me needed at least one more pass in the writer's room. There are just so many issues with, and we accept that Boy Meets World lives in a heightened reality universe, and we have had many episodes where that is a part of the conceit, where that is a part of my grade in the conceit. But the idea that they are 1,500 feet apart, and that is the entire linchpin for this episode of where these two storylines converge, and we're talking about a 15 minutes at most wrestling match that Cory's gotten himself into, because once again we are telling the same story we have told, where he has refused to just talk to his girlfriend that he has an open relationship with, not an open relationship with,
I know what you mean.
an honest relationship where he's open in the dialogue, and trying to help out Frankie, where this is not the first time that he's helped out Frankie, and this is not the first time that Topanga knows that he's helped out Frankie.
Yep.
We get Topanga reverting to a more shallow state than she has been. You know, we've seen her develop more and more into a very independent young woman. And even though we've seen her slip, the second episode this season into a more
Valley Girl,
a little more shallow. Yes. Hello. Bye-bye. I'm so at the ball. We see her really slip more into the I'll just die stereotype. And it feels like a step back. But the entire linchpin is there's a 15-foot distance between what's roughly an hour and a half, 2-hour party and a 15-minute wrestling match.
Yeah.
And that is just such a massively overlooked item that this episode needed a whole nother pass in the writer's room. I made the reference that it felt like that I wouldn't be surprised if they worked their way backwards from that shot of Cory and Topanga in the ring. And I really do feel like they had that idea on their board in the writer's room, is that, hey, how do we get Cory and Topanga dancing in a wrestling ring for their 16th birthday for Vader's last episode?
Yeah. No, I don't doubt that.
I mean, I like the story elements. I like Frankie and Vader trying to connect. I like Cory and Sean helping Frankie and Vader to connect. But it's such a secondary point, a secondary element in the episode that it feels superfluous. Mm-hmm. And this whole 16th, Topanga's anxiety and excitement over her 16th birthday party should feel more weight to it for Cory, for something that Cory missing out on is so devastating, but it also feels superfluous. It's just, it needed to be tightened up for me.
I don't disagree.
And so, yeah, that's my D.
I'll admit, I think this might be an episode I have nostalgia for. I also think they do give the time for this relationship between Frankie Jr., Frankie Sr., and I think that might be part of it for me, as being okay with it. I don't think it's the best episode of the season by far, but I also think I don't know if it's the worst. But it's also okay that you didn't like it as much, and I think all of your critiques are fair. I guess the only thing I can say is you need to have more joy in your heart, Brett, and have more fun with this thing.
Oh, he woofed. So cute.
Yes. And we will see little what do they call?
We will see Herman.
We will
one
see
more
Herman
time.
once more, but
In just a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
Good-looking people.
as of next week.
Actually, next week, yes.
Yes.
Well, I believe I'm owed a dad joke before we wrap this
You are,
puppy up.
Brett. You know what? Let's go with this one. What is a wrestler's least favorite vegetable?
I don't know. What is a wrestler's least favorite vegetable?
An artichoke. All right, one more. What is a WWE's chef's favorite move?
Oh, I think I know this one.
What
is it?
suplex.
Why didn't I see that? It was right there, too. I overthought that.
Gotcha.
You did. Well, good-looking people. Well, thank you for sticking around. And if you think that I was too harsh on this episode,
Yes.
let us know. You can send us an email at dadsmeetworld@gmail.com, or you can send us a message on one of our social media channels at Twitter/X, Facebook, Instagram, at dadsmeetworld, and on TikTok.
Let Brett know he was a curmudgeon.
Same profile. Yeah, let me know that if I was the old angry curmudgeon get off my lawn energy this week. But thank you, good-looking people, for stopping in and listening to us again this week. We will be back next week. And until then, good-looking. I'll see
Back to you, good looking.
You know, how can I learn so much every week and still be so stupid?
I want to be normal, spud.
Oh, man. We're doing this story again?
You know, take the joy out of everything.
Dads Meet World is a production of Headfirst Studios. Headfirst Studios. Tell your story.